Today, let's talk about vulnerability. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked this question. Everyone comes up to me and goes, Bo, I'd really like to be vulnerable right here in my speech, or I'd like to show some vulnerability here. And it is important, vulnerability, right? It's what connects you to your audience. It's really attractive, vulnerability. But we're going about it all wrong. We're going about our vulnerability as a result, right? You can't do that. You can't do that. Because, see, people go, oh, Bo, on this section of my speech or my story, I'd like to be vulnerable. So leading up to that section of their speech, they're trying to cry. They're trying to be vulnerable. And that does not connect you with people. All that looks like is somebody trying to be vulnerable, so it looks inauthentic. It doesn't work that way. This is what is vulnerable about people. When someone's giving all that they have, all of a sudden they become vulnerable. Do you notice that? So I don't care what you look like, who you are. Say, let's use an example like a professional athlete, right? Like you wouldn't think that they're vulnerable, right? They are, because they're playing at the highest level. They have the most at risk, which makes them vulnerable and ultimately watchable, attractive. A player like a guy like Tom Brady, right? So he's probably the greatest football player ever to play this game. You know, he may have just passed Jerry Rice here recently. Because he's the greatest of all time, he has the most to lose, which every game that he plays now, he is the most vulnerable. He has the most to lose, so he is the most vulnerable. This is why the TV cameras stay on him the whole time, because you can't take your eyes off somebody who is vulnerable. So think of yourself now on stage, or even in front of your kids, which is really powerful for your kids to see that, hey, my dad or my mom, they're vulnerable. You have to risk more. You can't plan as a result to be vulnerable right here. You just have to give more of yourself. You have to risk more of being outside your comfort zone, and that makes you vulnerable. That's what makes people attracted to you. So stop looking for the results of vulnerability and start looking at the process of what it takes to get your butt exposed and on the line so that you're risking something. So then as a result of that process, you now become vulnerable, which now we all know what happens once somebody's vulnerable. You can't look away from them. So I want you to concentrate on the process of risking stuff so that you can become vulnerable and stop going, hey, I want to cry at this juncture. Hey, on this sentence, I'd love for tears to come out of my eyes. That does not work. It looks inauthentic, it looks phony, and it looks manufactured, which gives you no connection to your audience. So try the process and see what happens to you. Here's what I want you to do next. I want you to go over to boeason.com and I want you to download my free storytelling guide. And in there are all kinds of exercises to get you up on your feet, start developing and telling your story. You're also going to be the first to find out when a new video comes out, because the hardest thing about being the best and continuing to be the best is you have to be reminded of what is current. So you're going to be the first to know. We're going to keep you accountable. Go over to boeason.com, continue to be the best.